Just an icy morning. Some of the stuff I could tell is starting to melt off, but it's going to get really cold overnight and it's just going to refreeze. So it's something to look out for in the morning. And again, take your time on the road during your commute during the day because it's still slick out there. Let's check in with our good friend Sam Walker from Sam Walker OBX News. Sam Walker, how are you doing, my friend?
Trying to stay warm. It feels like today, anyway. And we're out here shoveling all the rain that we got over the last 24 hours.
I was just about to ask, man. So obviously, you're not just Dare County, but I'm thinking about Rocky Mount, Nash County, Edgecombe, Tarboro. How is everybody? I know I'm giving you like a big area right now. How are folks faring there?
Yeah, just give me everything east of I-95, why don't you? So, because that's how we feel out here. It's the Berlin Wall, the rest of North Carolina doesn't care about us. That's how it goes. No, and I'll start there because that's where it seems like for eastern North Carolina was the largest impacts from this winter storm, with the freezing rain, with the sleet, with the bad roads, some power outages, things like that. And again, right along the I-95 corridor, as you get into those areas, like you said, Tarboro, Rocky Mount, Nashville, on up to Roanoke Rapids, on down towards Benson, Fayetteville, those places. It was rough at times, but it was kind of comes and goes. And again, the forecasts were calling for a quarter inch to a half inch of ice. It looks like it was a lot less in those areas, maybe a tenth to a quarter, right on that borderline of really things going bad. As you get farther east, where the transition really was between, say, Wilson and Greenville, it was nearly, it was, again, pockets of areas that saw problems, but not just widespread, slick roads and things like that. We saw a glaze of ice on vehicles, and even down, as far east as Wilmington had a glaze at the National Weather Service office there at Wilmington International Airport. They had their vehicles were kind of covered with a light glaze. And then as you get farther northeast on up towards where I'm at on the Outer Banks, really it was concentrated to areas from Edenton west and Gates County, and then down Plymouth, Little Washington. Those areas saw some icing, and there were some slick roads yesterday morning in a couple of bridges. In fact, the Neuse River Bridge in New Bern had to be shut down for about an hour or two because of ice that formed on it and a couple of crashes. And we had the same reports in the Chowan River Bridge, where US 17 passes over the Chowan River in the northeast. And then as you move just a little bit farther east, you get to Elizabeth City. There was some sleet when it started Saturday night. Same thing in like Kill Double Hills. Same thing, where I'm at in Currituck County. And then by 2, 3 in the morning, it was all rain, and it pretty much just rained the whole time. So we really missed out on this, and the forecast kind of held just about what we were expecting out here on the coast. Thankfully, no ocean issues, no big waves to deal with, no ocean overwash, no soundside flooding, even though we had some pretty stiff winds out of this storm. But really, for the most part, we made out pretty well here in the Northeast and eastern North Carolina in general.
Oh man, you talked about Elizabeth City. I was just in that area a couple of weeks ago. So, and I'm familiar with Eastern North Carolina. When it gets slick, because I think back to 2015, 2016, 2022, covering not quite that north, but Eastern North Carolina and Southeastern North Carolina. It gets treacherous on those roads because it's a lot more rural out there. And look, folks are just hunkered down. They're not out and about like here in the Charlotte metro area.
Yeah, everybody kind of takes advice when it comes to these storms. They get things done before and then kind of, like you said, stay home. Take advantage of a day off maybe and sit inside, watch some football like everybody was doing yesterday afternoon and evening. And the other thing that happens out here so many times is the rain-snow line sets right up just inland, just to a certain point. In fact, there's the Intracoastal Waterway, which runs along through the why we call it intracoastal. It's inside the Outer Banks, so it runs through the sounds and the coastal rivers. That kind of seems like it's the cutoff line. In one particular spot, I just happen to live at this particular spot. It's called Coin Jock, and it's where the canal, the Intracoastal Waterway, crosses US 158. And that always seems like it could be 6 inches of snow north of it and nothing south of it. That's kind of how these storms a lot of times play out here. Just because it's just close enough to the water, we've got these big wide bodies of water we call sounds, the Currituck Sound, the Albemarle Sound, the Pamlico Sound. There's just enough heat content in there to keep things from turning into snow. And then, of course, if you get a northeast breeze or a breeze off the ocean, even in the upper atmospheres, it creates a situation where we miss out, if you will. But again, you just go a couple of miles inland and there's a sheet of ice or, a couple inches of snow. That's kind of what happened. It was just in a larger scale this time, and there's a lot of other meteorological reasons. But yeah, out here, because we're rural, even though we're part of the Hampton Roads, the Norfolk, Virginia metropolitan area, and we actually are part of the metro, I guess, it's kind of like if you're headed out to Statesville, if you will, almost, for Charlotte, kind of that same scenario. So life still goes on, and there's a lot of places you got to go and get to. But yeah, for the most part, everybody did that. They kind of stayed home yesterday, and that's probably what helped with the lack of issues we really had out here.
Yeah, you're just a quick 45-minute drive to Norfolk.
Yep.
Tim, I got to ask, look, round 2, I know it's still early, but it looks like it could be if the models play out the way they, worst case scenario, y'all could be getting something. Any talk, any preparation happening? Again, I know it's still early, but I had to ask you.
Yeah, we're starting to get some rumbles, not just about wintry precipitation, starting to get a little concerned that maybe this is going to be more of a traditional nor'easter, which brings its own problems for the beaches, and especially that area of Buxton that we've been, everybody's been covering it now for a year with where the houses all fell. That's a very tiny area, by the way, folks. It's not the whole Outer Banks. It's about a mile, if you will, where all that happened. We are concerned that this next system this weekend may bring us a little bit longer period of strong winds over the open ocean, creating more wave action. We are going to be coming into a little higher tide cycle, lunar tide cycle as well this weekend. So just early on, we're going to start thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be one where we've got to be worried about multiple impacts. There's going to be plenty of cold air in place, that's for sure. We're supposed to be down in the teens here on the mainland tonight and the next couple of nights. Even the beaches are going to be in the mid-20s. Even Hatteras Island in the upper 20s, where it rarely gets down below freezing. It was 65 there yesterday, by the way, at that one point with this system, the last system. So, yeah, we are getting a little concerned about that. Preparation-wise, it's probably the DOT's probably going to have the biggest problem because they've used up so much salt so far. So they're going to have to get all that back in and get the roads done. But as far as preparations go with anything happening coastal wise, that's kind of life out here. It's Monday on the Outer Banks is what we call it. We just roll with it. We know it's going to happen at some point. We've dodged a couple of bullets. We haven't had to deal with this since late October, which is a good thing, but the overall pattern in the atmosphere is starting to set up that we may be dealing with some late winter nor'easters into spring, which can be just as powerful and just as damaging as hurricanes can. So this might be round 1 of the late winter storms. Hopefully not, but we'll be ready for it just like we always are.
Yeah. Oh, man. Sam, I got to ask you this because an interesting read from your website, again, SamWalkerOBXNews.com. Hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot, but again, just very interesting looking at the numbers. Lodging revenue and the forecast.
Yeah.
Man, really fascinating stuff because you don't think about it. 6 years since the pandemic, Sam, almost 6 years, and revenue, occupancy revenue went down, and then it shot up when things were clear and took a slight dip. And now the forecast. Can you explain those numbers? I don't know if I kind of rambled through that. I don't know if I did a great job explaining, but can you explain what that article is about?
Yeah, so the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau had a study commission by a company called Tourism Economics, and they do this. This is what they do. They project out tourism revenue numbers, hospitality tax numbers. So we're talking about your occupancy tax, your meals tax. Here on the Outer Banks, we shut down, if you go back to during the pandemic, right, March 17th, 2020, closed the bridges. Dare County said, nope, nobody's coming in. We're going to ride this thing out. Did that until the second week of May, where only only residents were allowed on the Outer Banks. That was very controversial for obvious reasons. Many of our second homeowners, or many of our homeowners, property owners here on the Outer Banks, are from the Northeast. They're from the major metropolitan areas. They were trying to find a way to get out, go somewhere that they felt a little safer. So we saw this massive, massive hit to our economy. Well, when we reopened, one of the things about the Outer Banks is, though, it's so unique. It's 110 miles long, and we don't have boardwalks. We don't have amusement parks. We don't have all the things that Virginia Beach, Myrtle Beach, Atlantic City, and Coney Island, places like that have. It's wide open beaches, houses. Yeah, we've got a lot of houses, but they're kind of spread out. We saw a mass influx. Our tourism revenue tripled, went from like $120 million to over $300 million in 2021, 2022. Looking back on how things went, the numbers just kind of leveled out. It was anticipated there was going to be a dip. There was going to be more of a reset, not so much a dip on a loss. It was just going to be reset. It was going to go back to normal growth. That never happened. We've stayed in that upper 200s, 200 million, just in occupancy, gross occupancy revenue, which is that's what people are paying to stay at a hotel, stay at a vacation rental. Then they take and calculate the occupancy tax with that. So this projection was run. We saw a little dip in 24. We're expecting things to be right about where 24 was this year. The final numbers will come in here in 2 weeks. And then looking ahead, there's a lot of questions about what's going to happen overall with the economy. We have seen a dip in international travel, especially from Canada. This is a very popular destination for Canada to come to because there's a huge wind sports community in Canada. They come to Hatteras Island. They spend weeks here in the spring, in the winter, and in the fall because our weather is relatively warmer. We've seen a dip in that. A lot of things play into this. Again, the economy, political situations and all. But right now it looks like, we're going to see a little rise this year, maybe a little rise next year. But it's more of a reset, if you will. And you got to remember, Dare County is the third highest tourism generating county in North Carolina. Mecklenburg is first, Wake is second, Dare is third with almost we were at $2.1 billion overall tourism economy income last year. So, one of the things we track that very closely because it's trickles down. It is a tourism-based economy first, and if tourism takes a huge hit, everybody takes a huge hit out here. But right now, it looks like we're just going to level off and continue that level off just because people love coming here.
Wow, fascinating stuff there, Sam. Again, I encourage you guys to take a look at that article, SamWalkerOBXNews.com. Always good stuff coming from Sam. Sam, we're gonna have you back on soon, depending what happens this weekend or not. But we're gonna talk to you soon, my friend.
I'm sure you will. Unfortunately, I'd rather talk tourism than storms, to be honest with you.
We can do that too.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? Like we say, that's life on a sandbar. We deal with it. The wind's going to blow, the rain's going to come, the waves are going to get up. We'll go out and watch it, maybe go ride it a little bit if it gets nice and clean, get a little offshore wind, get about a 6 to 8 foot, even though the water temperature is 55 degrees. Go out there and throw the boards in because everybody's kind of hoping that's what's going to happen with this, and we'll be able to ride it and not have to wade through it on the highway, on Highway 12. We'll be able to ride it later on next week.
All right, Sam, thank you again for your time, man. You stay safe out there. Again, we'll check in with you soon.
All right, thanks.